So where we finished off in the last video, we were talking about the purchasing power. What is happening if the purchasing power is falling? Well, people will take their currency, convert it into tangible goods, hoping that these goods will retain their actual purchasing power. So, what causes purchasing power of currency to fall? It's inflation. Inflation is whenever the purchasing power of a particular currency is actually falling. Or it's inflation in the price of goods. So if the price of goods has started going up, as we go back to our chip example, we said originally you could spend $1 and get a bag of chips. Now it costs $2.50 to get a bag of chips. The price of those goods are now inflated. They have started going up. They've grown larger. That's causing the purchasing power of a dollar bill to actually go down. A dollar bill no longer buys as much. And this is what we consider inflation. You hear about inflation all of the time in the news. Most of us have seen the pictures of German peasants after World War I carrying money in wheelbarrows. Prices rose so fast that the purchasing power of money was virtually wiped out. This is an example of hyperinflation. This is whenever the price of goods increase at such an alarming rate that essentially the purchasing power of money goes away. It's like, say that we could buy this bag of chips for $1 today. We wake up tomorrow and realize that this same bag of chips now costs $2.50. The next day it costs $5. The next day it costs $15. The next day it costs $20. Now all of a sudden, it takes $20 to buy a bag of chips after just 5 days, whenever it used to cost $1 just 4 days or 5 days before. This is an example of hyperinflation. And that's what was going on in Germany right after World War I. Basically, the price of the products in Germany became so inflated, became so high, that it essentially took wheelbarrows of money in order to buy the same amount of goods that you used to be able to carry just in your hand. In hyperinflation, people lose all faith in the value of currency, and its role as a store of value is diminished. Basically, whenever this happens, people realize that the price of goods is going up at such an alarming rate that the dollar that I have today will not buy the same amount tomorrow, and people lose all faith in this value. This currency is becoming essentially worthless overnight. So what do? What they do is they run out and they buy as much tangible goods as possible, because they know that their currency is not going to buy the same amount the next day. So they go and buy as much tangible goods as they can in order to hopefully retain at least some value. So, what happens to the money supply is important news, because many economists believe that it is the primary throttle and brake of the economic activity. Their belief is essentially accurate. Then by regulating the money supply, it is possible to regulate the growth and health of the economy. So what exactly is the money supply? Well, the money supply is popularly called, or what is the money supply? It is not a price-quantity supply relationship. So if we remember back to chapter 3 in this book, we said that supply is a relationship between price and quantity. Well, the money supply is not a relationship. It is a one-dimensional measure of the total amount of money in circulation at any given moment. So, the term money supply is a misnomer, and it would be more accurately stated as quantity of money supplied. So whenever you think of the money supply within the United States, actually think about the quantity of money supplied. How much money is on the market today? What is that quantity of that money supplied? So, how do you calculate the money supply? How do you calculate the quantity of money that is supplied in the United States? Well, you would think that it would be relatively easy to measure the size of the money supply. But remember, money, if we think back to what we talked about in the beginning, is anything generally accepted and commonly used as means of payment. For our purposes, the money supply is the sum of all coins, currency, demand deposits, and other checkable deposits and travelers' checks in existence at any given time. This narrow definition is the components of the money supply and is technically known as M1. So, if I were to ask, what is M1? Well, you'll say it's the sum of all coins and currency, demand deposits, other checkable deposits, and travelers' checks. What are demand deposits? Demand deposits are going to be your checking accounts. Basically, any account where they demand money before they'll start providing transactions. So if you think about your checking account, you have to make a deposit in that checking account before you can write a check. The bank is not going to transfer money out of your account into somebody else's unless you actually have money in your account. So they're demanding deposits up front before they'll actually make a deposit. So that's the form of M1. M1 is the sum of all of these: coins, currency, demand deposits, other checkable deposits, and travelers' checks. Well, there's another calculation, and it incorporates near monies or quasi money, and that's going to be called M2, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So many forms of financial assets are classified as near money or quasi money. While not generally considered to be part of the money supply, they can be transferred into money quite easily. So, first one we have is time deposits. These are going to be your savings accounts. Shares of money market, mutual funds, and certificates of deposits are examples. So, if you think about your savings account or a CD or a certificate of a deposit, you take money, you put it into these accounts, you put it into these deposits, and the whole idea behind a time deposit is that you leave your money in there, and over time, it actually increases your wealth by obtaining interest. And this happens in shares of money market, mutual funds, certificates of deposits, and even your savings accounts. But you can take your savings account at any given point in time and transfer it in to a checking account, and now it becomes part of the money supply. Or talk about money market mutual funds. At any given point in time, you can sell money market mutual funds for cash. Certificate of deposits, you can trade them in for cash at any point in time. So, near money or quasi money is financial assets that can be transferred into money quite readily or easily. Few of these near monies are commonly used as means of payment. They must first be converted into money for eventual payment. So what this means is you're not going to take your savings account and pay out of your savings account. Typically, you transfer that into your checking account first.